Classified documents found at former Vice President Mike Pence's home in Indiana. Pence's former Homeland Security advisor spoke with Chris Cuomo last night about the latest discovery and said thinks that there should be a special counsel investigation. Pence's team said he was unaware that the documents were accidentally boxed up and taken to his home when he left office. They said he immediately put the documents in a locked safe, and FBI agents came to collect those documents last Friday while the former vice president was in Washington, D.C. All of this coming just days after agents found more classified documents at President Biden's home in Delaware. That was on Friday. Documents had been previously discovered in the House and in the president's former private office at the Biden Penn Center. A special prosecutor is currently investigating that. A special prosecutor is also investigating the handling of classified documents at former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence after FBI agents seized materials there last August. I want to welcome former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, co-host of the It's Complicated Legal Analysis podcast. Good to have you with us this morning. So I'm wondering, Trump and Biden, does this lift some of the pressure off them now that you've got a third batch of classified documents found at Pence's home?
Well, that's more of a political question. I suppose that's the case. I will say that I think former Vice President Pence handled this correctly. His team, I think, obviously they had the advantage of seeing how others had handled a similar situation, but I thought they handled this about as well as you could. They had somebody who was experienced in handling classified material, conduct a search. They quickly secured the material. They notified the government right away. Obviously, sharp contrast with former President Trump, and somewhat of a contrast in terms of how it was handled with the current president.
We brought this up at the top of the hour about just the sheer volume of classified documents that exist. I mean, somewhere around 50 million documents are classified per year. I guess I would ask, are there too many documents being classified, or is it more important that we understand the level of classification and why certain documents are classified and where those should be kept?
Yeah, I think that's a really smart question. I think that, if you take a step back here, one thing that we should be doing is having congressional oversight regarding, our classification system, how classified documents are stored and kept, how they're tracked, and also in presidential transitions. I mean, I think it should be that no other presidential transition going forward is handled the way the last couple have. I think we should make sure at the end of a presidential transition that we've properly tracked and accounted for classified material. So I think that would be an appropriate subject for congressional oversight. I'll note that I don't think that is what Congress is focused on right now, but I think that's very much something that would be in the public interest, and potential legislation I think would make sense as well.
Pence has spoken on this before. I want to play just a quick soundbite of him being asked about classified documents for folks at home.
We sit here in your home office in Indiana. Did you take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
President Biden also has said similar things about having classified documents in his possession. I think the larger question is, can anyone in these high offices confidently say that they don't have some classified documents somewhere in possession, or are they looking right now to make sure that they can say that with a straight face?
Well, I think they are looking, and that's, just to be clear, that is what happened in the case of Vice President Pence. I think his spokesperson's statement was, or his attorney's statement was, that the former vice president conducted the search out of an abundance of caution, given what had happened regarding President Biden's materials after he had left the vice presidency. So, yes, I do think that former officials are searching. I mean, I think, to be charitable to Mr. Pence and to Mr. Biden, I think that both of them, it appears, didn't believe they had classified documents, and they were trying to draw a contrast with former President Trump, who was willfully withholding them from the Justice Department when they were asking for them back. So there is definitely an important distinction between that case and the other two. But I think it's fair to say that, that it appears that sloppy handling of classified materials was commonplace regarding or after presidential transitions.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.